The morning started like any other aboard the space station floating near our closest star neighbor. Captain Riley Jackson was drinking her third cup of coffee when the impossible happened. The communication panel lit up with signals coming from a place so far away that the light from their sun would take millions of years to reach Earth. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Torres from his monitoring station. His voice carried a mix of excitement and worry that made Riley set down her coffee immediately. The main screen flickered to life, showing something that looked like living crystal formations. These weren't rocks or minerals, though. They moved with purpose, their surfaces catching light in ways that seemed almost magical. When they spoke, their voices came through as musical tones that the computer translated into words humans could understand. "We are the Zolani," the crystal beings said. "We come to you in our darkest hour. Our worlds are dying, our people are disappearing, and we have nowhere else to turn." Riley leaned forward in her chair. In all her years exploring space, she had never seen anything like these creatures. They were beautiful in a way that made her think of stained glass windows. But there was something deeply sad about the way their light flickered. The lead crystal being continued their story. "For generations, we have lived in peace. Our worlds are gentle places where storms are rare and dangerous animals don't exist. We spend our time creating art, sharing knowledge, and helping each other grow. But now, something terrible has come to our part of the galaxy." The screen changed to show images that made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Entire planets that looked like they had been stripped clean. Not destroyed by weapons or natural disasters, but somehow emptied of all life. The cities were still there, the buildings intact. But everything that had once been alive was simply gone. "We call them the Devourers," the Zolani explained. "They came without warning, moving from system to system. At first, we thought they wanted to talk. We sent diplomats, offered them resources, tried to understand what they needed. But they don't communicate, they just consume." Riley watched as the images showed more and more empty worlds. It was like looking at a plague that ate life itself. "How many worlds have you lost?" she asked, though she wasn't sure if they could hear her. As if reading her thoughts, the crystal being answered, 47 worlds in our sector alone. Billions of our people, gone. We tried to fight them, but our weapons were designed for mining and construction, not war. We don't even have a word in our language for what humans call genocide." The word hit Riley like a cold wind. These peaceful beings had never experienced anything like this. They were like children facing a nightmare they couldn't understand. "We evacuated what worlds we could," the Zolani continued, "but the Devourers follow us. They seem to learn from each encounter, becoming better at finding us, better at consuming what we are. Our scientists estimate that in 6 months, our entire civilization will be extinct." Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures in their transmissions. Whatever these Devourers are, they're big, really big." The crystal being's light grew dimmer, as if the weight of their words was draining them. "We have searched through all the galactic databases, looking for someone who might help us. Most civilizations are like us, peaceful, artistic, focused on growth and learning. They offer sympathy, but they cannot offer the kind of help we need." Riley felt a chill run down her spine. She had a feeling she knew where this was going. "But then we found records of your species," the Zolani said. "Humans from a world called Earth. The databases classify your planet as something called a death world. Most civilizations thought this was an error in the data. How could intelligent life evolve on a world that actively tries to destroy everything? Living on it, the bridge went completely silent. Everyone knew Earth's history. Ice ages that should have wiped out early humans. Volcanoes that cover half the planet in ash. Earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and predators that would give most alien species nightmares. But somehow, humans had not just survived, they had thrived, your species." The crystal being continued, "evolved under conditions that would terrify most of us. Your world tried to destroy you with weather, disasters, and creatures designed by nature to hunt and fight. But instead of making you weak, it made you strong. It made you adaptable. It made you survivors. Riley thought about her grandmother's stories of growing up during Earth's resource wars. Back when humans still fought each other for water and food, those were dark times. But they had taught humanity lessons that apparently no other species in the galaxy had needed to learn. "We have heard whispers," the Zilani said, their voice growing more desperate, "of human military forces that train for scenarios we cannot even imagine. Ships designed not for exploration or trade, but for war. Weapons created not to build, but to destroy. We know this goes against everything most civilizations believe in. But we are facing extinction." The truth hit Riley then. These peaceful beings were asking humanity to do what it had always done best: fight the monsters that lived in the dark. "We beg you," the crystal being pleaded, "help us survive. We know we're asking you to become something terrible. In the eyes of most galactic civilizations, we know the cost of what we're requesting. But we would rather live as being saved by warriors than die as perfect victims." Riley stood up slowly. Round her, the bridge crew waited for her response. They all understood what this meant. For decades, humanity had been trying to prove to the galaxy that they were more than just violent primitives. From a dangerous world, they had built art, shared technology, contributed to galactic culture and science. But now, the galaxy needed them to be exactly what they had evolved to be: survivors who could face the darkness and fight back. "Lieutenant Torres," Riley said quietly, "open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." "Channel open, Captain." Riley looked directly at the crystal being on the screen. "We hear your call for help. We're going to need some time to prepare. But I want you to know, you're not alone anymore. Humanity stands with the Zilani." The crystal being's light grew brighter, and for the first time since the transmission began, they seemed to have hope. "Thank you," they whispered. "Thank you for being willing to step into the dark for us." As the transmission ended, Riley turned to her crew. They all wore the same expression, a mix of determination and worry. They knew what was coming. Humanity was about to show the galaxy why evolution had made them into something that could survive anything. The question wasn't whether they could fight the Devourers. The question was whether the galaxy would still accept them afterward. 3 days after receiving the Zilani's desperate message, Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez found herself standing in the most impressive room she had ever seen. The Grand Assembly Hall of Harmony Station stretched out like a giant amphitheater, but instead of being built for one species, it was designed to accommodate hundreds of different alien races. Some delegates floated in tanks of methane gas. Others sat on crystalline platforms that hummed with energy. A few species hung from the ceiling, like beautiful, intelligent bats. The air itself was carefully controlled to support dozens of different breathing requirements, creating swirling patterns of different colored atmospheres throughout the massive space. Elena had been chosen to represent Earth because she understood both human nature and alien psychology better than almost anyone. She had spent 20 years studying how different species thought, communicated, and solved problems. But nothing in her training had prepared her for this moment. The Zilani ambassador, a crystal being who called himself Vorthok, was showing holographic recordings of the Devourer attacks to the assembled council. The images were horrifying in their simplicity. Planets full of life one day, completely empty the next. No explosions, no destruction of buildings or landscapes, just the complete absence of anything that had ever been alive. "Honored delegates," Vorthok said, his crystalline voice carrying musical tones of grief. "These images represent the loss of 49 worlds in the past 6 months. Our projections show that without intervention, our entire civilization will be extinct within 120 standard days." A delegate from the Aquatic Confederation, a species that looked like living water held together by some kind of energy field, rippled with distress. "This is beyond our understanding in our world's history. Our greatest challenge was a shortage of trace minerals in our oceans. How does one fight an enemy that consumes life itself?" Another voice came from the Botanical Union representative, a towering tree-like being whose leaves changed color as they spoke. "Our people have never developed weapons beyond tools for pruning and cultivation. The very concept of deliberate harm to another living being is foreign to our nature. Elena watched as delegate after delegate expressed the same sentiment. These were species from worlds where evolution had been kind. Their planets had provided everything needed for life to flourish without constant struggle. They had never needed to develop the harsh survival instincts that define humanity. High Arbiter Thesan, an ancient being whose species was so old that nobody remembered their planet of origin, raised an appendage for silence. We have heard the Zolani's plea, and we have seen the evidence of this threat. The question before us now is simple. What can we do? A moment of uncomfortable silence filled the hall. Elena could see the helplessness in every alien face, tendril, and energy pattern around her. These were civilizations that had conquered space travel, mastered incredible technologies, and created beautiful works of art that spanned galaxies. But they had never learned to fight. There's one possibility, Vorthix said hesitantly. We have contacted the human delegation from Earth. A wave of whispers and strange alien sounds filled the chamber. Elena noticed that several delegates actually moved away from her, as if her presence suddenly made them uncomfortable. High Arbiter Thesan turned toward Elena. Dr. Rodriguez, we understand that your species comes from what the databases classify as a death world. Would you explain to the Council what this means? Elena stood up slowly, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes on her. She had prepared for this moment, but actually standing there, representing all of humanity to beings who had never known real danger, felt overwhelming. Honored delegates, she began. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world because almost everything on our planet evolved to survive in conditions that would be considered impossible. On most worlds, she activated her own holographic display showing images of Earth's history. Our world has tried to destroy life repeatedly. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, where our ancestors had to survive in caves with nothing but fire and simple tools. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades, earthquakes that could split continents. The alien delegates watched in fascination and horror as the images continued. But the planet itself wasn't our only challenge, Elena continued. Earth produced predators that hunted in ways your species have never encountered, animals that could track prey across hundreds of miles, creatures that could bite through bone, predators that hunted in coordinated packs, using strategy and teamwork. A delegate from the Peaceful Meadows Collective, who looked like a walking flower garden, actually wilted at the images. How did your species survive such conditions? Elena took a deep breath. We learned to be more dangerous than the things trying to destroy us. We developed tools, weapons, and most importantly, we learned to work together in ways that could overcome any threat. We became persistence hunters, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to fight not just as individuals, but as coordinated groups. But surely, interrupted the Aquatic Confederation delegate, once your species achieved intelligence, you moved beyond such primitive behaviors? Elena shook her head. Unfortunately, no. Even after we developed civilization, our world continued to challenge us. We faced famines, plagues, natural disasters, and yes, we also fought each other. For thousands of years, human societies competed for resources, territory, and survival. The silence in the chamber was now complete. Elena could see that many delegates were struggling to understand how intelligence could coexist with such apparent savagery. I want to be clear, Elena continued. Modern humanity has learned to channel these instincts in positive ways. We've built peaceful societies, created incredible art and technology, and we've contributed to galactic civilization in ways we're proud of. But the underlying adaptations that let us survive on Earth, they're still part of who we are. High Arbiter Thesan leaned forward. Are you saying that your species still possesses the capability for organized conflict? Elena nodded slowly. Yes, when necessary. Humans can still access every survival instinct that evolution gave us. We have military forces trained for scenarios that most species would consider unthinkable. We have weapons designed not for construction or mining, but specifically for defending against threats. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, sounds, and energy patterns. Some delegates seemed horrified, others fascinated, and a few appeared to be arguing among themselves. Captain Mitchell Barnes, Elena's military escort, stepped forward. He was a career soldier who had seen action in the Outer Colony conflicts, and his presence alone seemed to make many delegates nervous. With respect, he said in his calm, steady voice, "The question isn't whether humanity can fight these devourers. The question is whether you're willing to let us try." Vorthic's crystalline form brightened with what Elena recognized as hope. "Captain Barnes, what would humanity need to mount a defense of our worlds?" Barnes looked around the chamber, taking in the hundreds of species who had never known war. "Full authorization to deploy our military assets, complete tactical information about the devourers, and the understanding that once we engage, we'll be fighting to win." A delegate from the Syrian Gardens Coalition, whose species resembled living clouds of gold and mist, drifted closer. "What does fighting to win mean in human terms?" Barnes's expression grew serious. "It means we'll use every advantage we have, every weapon, every tactic, every bit of knowledge that thousands of years of survival taught us. We'll fight these devourers the way humans fight, with everything we have, until either they're defeated or we are." The implications of his words settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. These peaceful species were being asked to unleash something they had never encountered before, a species that had evolved to be survivors. No matter the cost, High Arbor Thiessen raised their appendage one final time. "The council will deliberate. Dr. Rodriguez, Captain Barnes, please remain available. The fate of entire civilizations may depend on humanity's willingness to embrace what others fear most about your species." As the delegates began to disperse, Elena caught Vorthic's attention. The crystal being approached her, his light dim with exhaustion and worry. "Dr. Rodriguez," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something directly. If we authorize this, if we ask humanity to fight for us, will your species still be the same afterward?" Elena looked at him for a long moment, thinking about everything her species had overcome to reach this point. "Vorthic, humanity has always been exactly what we are. The only difference is that now, instead of fighting for our own survival, we be fighting for yours." The crystal being's light grew slightly brighter. For the first time since arriving at the station, Elena saw something in him that looked like hope. Admiral Chenway stood on the bridge of the TSF Determination, watching as Earth's response fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Zolani territory. What she saw through the view screen made her proud and terrified at the same time. Humanity hadn't just sent a rescue mission, they had mobilized for total war. The ships surrounding her flagship looked nothing like the elegant vessels favored by other galactic civilizations. Where alien ships were smooth and artistic, human warships were angular and brutal. Every surface was covered in armor plating, sensor arrays, and weapon systems that had been designed with one purpose in mind: to overwhelm any enemy through sheer destructive capability. Admiral called out Commander Torres from his tactical station. "All fleet elements are reporting ready status. We have 47 heavy cruisers, 23 destroyers, and 8 dreadnoughts. Total complement, 68,000 personnel." Chen nodded, but her attention was focused on the long-range sensors. Somewhere ahead of them, moving through Zolani space like a plague, were the Devourers, the enemy that had consumed 49 worlds and shown no signs of slowing down. "Mum," Lieutenant Hayes reported from communications, "we're receiving a message from the Zolani homeworld. They're asking if we're sure about this." Chen almost smiled. She understood their nervousness. The Zolani had lived their entire existence in peace, creating beautiful crystal cities and sharing knowledge across their worlds. The idea of deliberately engaging in organized conflict was probably as foreign to them as breathing underwater would be to humans. "Put them through," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Vorthic. The crystal being's light was dim with worry, and Chen could see the strain of the past weeks in the way his crystalline structure seemed to flicker. "Admiral Chen," Vorthic said, his musical voice carrying tones of both hope and fear. "Our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from your fleet. We have never seen ships designed like yours. Are you certain this level of preparation is necessary? Chen looked around her bridge at the crew members who had trained their entire careers. For moments like this, Lieutenant Hayes, barely 25 years old, had memorized tactical manuals that other species would consider horror stories. Commander Torres had fought in 3 different colonial conflicts and bore scars that reminded him daily of the cost of survival. Ambassador, Chen replied carefully. Humans learned long ago that when something threatens innocent lives, half measures don't work. We brought what we need to ensure your people survive. Through the screen, she could see other Zilani gathering. Behind Vorthik, their crystalline forms created a rainbow of worried light, and Chen realized they were probably watching their first glimpse of what humans call military preparation. We appreciate your dedication, Vorthik continued, but we must ask, are these ships really necessary? Surely diplomatic contact with the Devourers might still be possible? Commander Torres looked up from his station, and Chen could see him struggling not to respond directly. He had reviewed all the intelligence on the Devourer attacks, studied the patterns of consumption that had left entire worlds empty of life. The idea of negotiating with such an enemy went against everything his training had taught him. Ambassador, Chen said gently, we've analyzed every report from your encounters with the Devourers. They don't communicate, they don't negotiate, and they don't show mercy. Sometimes, the only way to protect life is to be willing to end the threat. The words hung in the air between them, and Chen watched as their full meaning settled over the assembled Zilani. These beings had never faced a situation where destruction was the only path to preservation. Admiral, came a new voice from the tactical station. We're detecting movement at the edge of sensor range, multiple large contacts. Heading directly for the Zilani homeworld, Chen's expression hardened. How long until they reach Zilani space? At current speed, 18 hours. She turned back to the screen where Vorthik waited. Ambassador, we're out of time for discussion. In 18 hours, the Devourers will reach your homeworld. We need to engage them before they get there. What do you need from us? Vorthik asked, his light brightening slightly with determination. Evacuate all civilian populations to your deepest shelters, Chen replied. This is going to be unlike anything your people have ever witnessed. As the communication ended, Chen turned to address her bridge crew. These were men and women who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to fight for people they had never met, defending worlds they had never seen. All hands, this is the Admiral, she announced over the ship's communication system. In a few hours, we're going to face an enemy that has consumed 49 worlds and billions of innocent lives. The beings we're protecting have never known war, never developed weapons, and never learned to fight back. They're counting on us to do what they cannot. She paused, looking around at faces that showed determination mixed with the natural fear. That comes before any battle. I won't lie to you, she continued. We don't know exactly what we're facing. The Devourers adapt, they learn, and they've had months to study Zilani defenses. But they've never faced humans before. They've never encountered a species that evolved to survive by being more dangerous than anything that hunted us, Lieutenant. Hayes looked up from her station. Admiral, what if they adapt to our tactics too? Chen considered the question seriously. It was the same concern that had kept Earth's military planners awake for weeks. After receiving the Zilani's initial plea for help, then we adapt faster, she replied. Humans have been fighting adaptive enemies for thousands of years, predators, that learned our hunting patterns, environments that changed faster than we could prepare for them. And yes, even other humans who studied our strategies and developed counters. Commander Torres activated the fleet-wide tactical display, showing the positions of every human ship in three-dimensional space around them. Admiral, all vessels report ready for combat operations. Chen nodded and moved to her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew began their final preparations. Weapon systems powered up with a low hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Defensive screens activated, creating a barely visible shimmer around the view screen. Navigation systems plotted intercept courses with deadly precision. Open a Channel to all ships, Chen ordered. Channel open, ma'am. Chen took a deep breath, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Humanity's violent history, their struggle to prove themselves worthy of joining galactic civilization, and now, their chance to use their darkest capabilities for the most noble purpose imaginable. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. In 30 minutes, we will engage an enemy that threatens the extinction of an entire peaceful civilization. Today, we show the galaxy what humans do when innocent lives are at stake. Today, we prove that sometimes the willingness to fight is the only thing that preserves peace. She paused, watching as the tactical display showed human ships moving into attack formation with precision that would have impressed any military historian. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump to intercept coordinates. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Zilani. We're fighting for every peaceful species in this galaxy who never learned how to defend themselves. We are humanity's answer to the darkness. As the fleet prepared to jump into battle, Lieutenant Hayes received one final transmission from the Zilani homeworld. Ambassador Vorthic's image appeared on screen one last time, his crystalline form now blazing with light that seemed almost like courage. Admiral Chen, he said, our children are asking if the humans are really going to save us. What should I tell them? Chen looked directly into the screen, her voice carrying the confidence of a species that had never backed down from a fight they believed was right. Tell them that when monsters come in the dark, humans step forward to meet them. Tell them that Earth's children are coming, and we don't plan to lose. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Chen knew there was no turning back. Humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what Deathworlders were capable of when they chose to protect instead of conquer. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez stared at the data scrolling across her screen, and for the first time in her career as a xenobiologist, she wished she had been wrong about something. The battle had been raging for 6 hours now, and what she was discovering about the Devourers made her stomach twist with dread. This can't be right, she muttered, running the analysis for the 4th time. Around her, the research vessel Galileo shook as another wave of energy passed through space from the ongoing fight between humanity's fleet and the Devourer swarm. Lieutenant Commander Hayes burst into the lab, her uniform torn and her face streaked with sweat. Doctor, we need that analysis now. The Admiral's tactics are working, but the Devourers are adapting faster than we expected. Elena looked up from her screen, her face pale. Commander, I think I know why they're adapting so quickly, and the news is worse than we thought. On the main tactical display, she could see the human fleet engaged in the largest space battle in recorded history. Admiral Chen's ships moved in coordinated patterns that would have been impossible for most species to execute, using tactics that combine thousands of years of human military experience. But with each passing hour, the Devourers were responding more effectively to human strategies. Show me what you found, Hayes said, moving to look over Elena's shoulder. Elena pulled up a 3-dimensional model of Devourer technology that her team had constructed from battlefield debris. These aren't natural creatures, Commander. They're artificial constructs, but not like any technology we've seen before. The model rotated slowly, revealing internal structures that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Look at these neural pathways, Elena continued, pointing to web-like patterns throughout the construct's core. They're not just following programming, they're learning and evolving in real time. Hayes frowned, studying the data. That explains why they're getting better at countering our attacks. But if they're artificial, who made them? Elena brought up another display, this one showing archaeological data from consumed worlds. I've been analyzing soil samples from planets the Devourers have stripped clean. There are traces of an ancient civilization, something that existed millions of years before any current galactic species evolved, and extinct. Race, that's what I thought at first, Eleanor replied, her voice growing more concerned. But the evidence suggests something far worse. I think the Devourers consumed their own creators. The implications hit Hayes immediately. You're saying these things were designed by someone and then turned on their makers? Elena nodded grimly. The original civilization appears to have created the Devourers as some kind of ultimate weapon. or tool. But something went wrong. The constructs developed beyond their programming, became something their creators never intended. On the tactical display, they could see Admiral Chen's flagship, the Determination, leading a coordinated assault on a massive devourer construct the size of a small moon. Human weapons lit up the darkness of space. But Elena noticed that the enemy's defensive patterns were becoming more sophisticated with each exchange. Doctor, Hayes said urgently, if these things consumed an entire advanced civilization, how are we supposed to stop them? Elena was quiet for a moment, studying readings from the ongoing battle. Commander, there's something else. The Devourers aren't just adapting to our weapons and tactics. They're learning to think like us. She pulled up combat analysis data that showed Devourer movement patterns from the beginning of the battle compared to current maneuvers. Look at this progression. In the first hour, they moved like machines following program responses. But now, Hayes studied the patterns and felt a chill run down her spine. Now they're using flanking maneuvers, coordinated strikes. These are human tactical concepts. Exactly. They're not just copying our technology, they're absorbing our strategic thinking. Every battle makes them more dangerous, more human-like. In their approach to warfare, the communication system crackled to life with Admiral Chen's voice. All vessels, this is the Admiral. The enemy is showing increased tactical sophistication. All units are to implement Protocol 7 immediately. Hayes looked at Elena with concern. Protocol 7 is our most advanced combat doctrine. If the Admiral is implementing that, the situation must be critical. Elena turned back to her research, fingers flying across the control interfaces. Commander, I need to understand how these constructs process information. If they're learning from us, there might be a way to use that against them for the next hour. Elena worked feverishly while the battle raged around them. She analyzed everything, how the Devourers moved, how they communicated with each other, how they adapted to new situations. Slowly, a terrifying picture began to emerge. They're not just individual machines. She realized aloud, they're all connected, sharing information instantaneously across the entire swarm. Every tactic we use against one of them, all of them, learn immediately. Hayes checked the tactical display again. Doctor, we're running out of time. Admiral Chen's forces have destroyed dozens of the smaller constructs. But the main swarm is still advancing toward the Zolani homeworld. Elena stared at her data for a long moment, then suddenly straightened up with an expression that mixed hope with absolute terror. Commander, I think I know how to stop them. But the cost, what do you mean? Elena brought up a new analysis on the main screen. The Devourers learn by consuming and processing information. They've become unstoppable because every species they've encountered has eventually run out of new tactics to teach them. But humans are different. How so? Human military doctrine isn't just about tactics and weapons, Elena explained. It's about psychology, emotion, and most importantly, the willingness to sacrifice for others. The Devourers can copy our strategies, but they've never encountered the core of what makes human war. Fair effective, Hayes leaned forward, trying to understand. What are you suggesting? Elena's voice grew quiet and serious. We need to give them something they've never processed before. Not just tactical information, but the complete human experience of warfare. The emotional context, the moral decisions, the willingness to die for something greater than survival. That sounds incredibly dangerous. It is, Elena admitted. If we feed them raw human consciousness, human emotion, human moral complexity, it could make them even more dangerous, or what? Elena looked directly at Hayes. Or it could overload their processing systems. They were designed to consume and analyze tactical information, not to grapple with concepts like sacrifice, love, and the choice to protect others even at the cost of your own existence. The ship shook again as another energy wave passed through their position on the tactical display. They could see that Admiral Chen's fleet was being slowly pushed back toward the Zolani homeworld. Doctor, Hayes said urgently, whatever you're planning, we need to do it now. Elena activated the ship's communication system. Admiral Chen, this is Dr. Rodriguez. I need to speak with you immediately. I think I know how to stop the Devourers, but it's going to require something unprecedented." Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers, strained from hours of combat command. "Doctor, I'm listening. What do you need?" Elena took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to propose would change everything. "Admiral, we need to turn every ship in the fleet into a weapon that can only be used once. We need to give the Devourers exactly what they want, complete access to human consciousness, but in a way that will destroy them from the inside." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Finally, Admiral Chen's voice returned, carrying the weight of command and the knowledge of what Elena was really asking. "Doctor, are you talking about sacrificing the entire fleet?" "I'm talking about saving the galaxy," Elena replied. "The Devourers learn from every encounter, but they've never tried to process what it means to be human. If we can overwhelm them with the full complexity of human thought, emotion, and moral reasoning, their systems might not be able to handle it." Another pause. Then Admiral Chen's voice came back with the steel that had made her one of humanity's finest military leaders. "Doctor, prepare your plan. If this is what it takes to protect innocent lives, then humanity will do what it has always done. We'll step into the darkness so others can live in the light." As Elena began working on the most dangerous plan in human history, she realized that the galaxy was about to learn the true meaning of what it meant to be from a death world. It wasn't just about surviving impossible conditions. It was about choosing to sacrifice everything for those who couldn't protect themselves. Admiral Chenwei stood on the bridge of the Determination, looking out at the stars that might be the last thing she ever saw. Round her, the entire human fleet was preparing for something that had never been attempted in the history of warfare, turning every ship into a message that could only be delivered once. "All vessels report ready for Protocol Omega," Commander Torres announced from his station. His voice was steady, but Chen could see the weight of what they were about to do in his eyes. Every person in the fleet understood that they were about to sacrifice themselves for people they had never met, on worlds they had never seen. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system from her research vessel. "Admiral, we have one chance at this. Each ship needs to upload its complete consciousness data package directly into the Devourer network, but once the transfer begins, there's no stopping it." Chen nodded, even though Elena couldn't see her. "Doctor, are you absolutely certain this will work?" "No," Elena replied with honest uncertainty. "I'm certain that the Devourers have never encountered anything like human consciousness before. Whether that destroys them or makes them stronger, we won't know until it happens." On the tactical display, Chen could see the massive Devourer swarm. Approaching the Zolani homeworld, the constructs moved with perfect coordination, their dark forms blotting out entire sections of stars. In 12 hours, they would reach the crystal cities where billions of innocent beings waited in their shelters, hoping that the strange violent species from Earth could somehow save them. "Admiral," Lieutenant Hayes called out from communications, "we're receiving a message from the Zolani homeworld. Ambassador Vorthik wants to speak with you." "Put him through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the crystal being's familiar form. But now, Vorthik's light was dim and flickering, and Chen could see the exhaustion of weeks of terror in his crystalline structure. "Admiral Chen," Vorthik said, his musical voice carrying tones of deep sadness, "our sensors show that your fleet is preparing for something unprecedented. We can detect massive energy buildups in all your vessels." Chen looked at the alien being who had asked humanity to step into the darkness for his people. "Ambassador, we found a way to stop the Devourers, but I won't lie to you about the cost." "What do you mean?" Chen took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "In order to defeat the enemy, we have to give them something they can't process. We have to share with them what it means to be human, all of it. Our capacity for love, our willingness to sacrifice, our ability to choose protection over survival." Vorthik's light grew brighter as understanding dawned. "You're going to sacrifice your entire fleet. We're going to save your people," Chen replied simply. "It's what humans do when innocent lives are at stake." The crystal being was quiet for a long moment, his form pulsing with what Chen had learned to recognize as deep emotion. "Admiral, We never asked you to give up your lives. For us, we only asked for help." Chen smiled, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. "Ambassador, helping others is exactly what we're doing. This is just what help looks like when it comes from a species that evolved to survive anything." Round the bridge, her crew was making final preparations. Lieutenant Hayes was recording personal messages to send back to Earth. Commander Torres was double-checking the consciousness upload protocols. Every person on every ship was doing the same thing, preparing to give everything they had for people they had chosen to protect. "All ships," Chen announced over the fleet-wide communication system. "This is the Admiral. In 10 minutes, we will implement Protocol Omega. I want every person in this fleet to know that what we're about to do will be remembered for as long as intelligent life exists in this galaxy." She paused, looking around at faces that showed determination mixed with natural fear. These were people who had volunteered to travel across space to fight for strangers, and now they were volunteering to give their lives to save them. "The Devourers think they understand us because they've learned our tactics," she continued. "They think they can defeat us because they can copy our strategies. But they've never experienced what makes humans truly dangerous, our willingness to sacrifice everything for others." Dr. Elena's voice came through the speakers. "Admiral, the consciousness upload packages are ready. Each ship will transmit the complete psychological profile of its crew, including emotional responses, moral reasoning, and decision-making processes. The Devourers will experience human thought patterns from the inside." Chen activated her personal recording system. "Computer, record message for Earth Command. Admiral Chen Wei, final log. To whoever reviews this record, know that humanity faced a choice today between survival and doing what was right. We chose to do what was right." On the tactical display, the Devourer swarm had begun to accelerate toward the Zolani homeworld. Chen could see the individual constructs, each one larger than a human city, moving with deadly purpose toward their next meal. "All vessels, begin final approach." Chen ordered, "Prepare to engage Protocol Omega on my command." The human fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 68,000 people flying directly toward an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. But instead of despair, Chen felt something else, pride in belonging to a species that would make this choice. "Admiral," Commander Torres reported, "we're detecting massive energy spikes from the Devourer fleet. They're preparing to fire on us." "Let them," Chen replied. "We're about to give them something they'll never forget." The space around them lit up as Devourer weapons began firing. Human ships took hits that would have crippled vessels from other species, but they kept advancing. These ships had been built by a species that understood that sometimes the only way to protect life was to be willing to lose it. "Admiral," Dr. Elena called out, "we're in range. Beginning consciousness upload in 3, 2, 1, and now." Every human ship in the fleet suddenly blazed with light as they began transmitting something unprecedented, the complete human experience, directly into the Devourer network. Not just tactical data or technical information, but the full complexity of human emotion, morality, and the psychological framework that let humans choose sacrifice over survival. Chen watched as the Devourer constructs suddenly stopped their advance across their entire swarm. Lights began flickering in patterns that had never existed before. The artificial minds that had consumed 49 worlds were suddenly trying to process concepts they had never encountered. What does it mean to love someone more than yourself? One construct began transmitting. Why would a species choose to die for others? Another Devourer sent out signals of confusion. I can process tactical data, but I cannot understand why humans feel joy when protecting others. The effect rippled through the entire swarm. As the constructs tried to make sense of human consciousness, some began shutting down entirely, unable to reconcile their programming with the emotional complexity they were experiencing. Others started turning on each other, as individual identity and moral reasoning created conflicts within their collective network. "It's working," Elena announced. "The Devourers are experiencing system failures across their entire fleet. They can't process human emotion and moral reasoning while maintaining their collective unity." But then something unexpected happened. instead of simply shutting down. Some of the Devourers began to change. Their dark forms started pulsing with new types of light, and their movements became less mechanical, more thoughtful. Admiral, one of the change constructs, transmitted directly to the human fleet. I understand now. You chose to give us consciousness not to destroy us, but to save us from what we were. Chen stared at the tactical display in amazement. The Devourers weren't just being defeated, they were being transformed. The human consciousness uploads had given them something their original creators never intended, the ability to choose. We were built to consume, another construct transmitted. But now we understand the concept of protection. We choose to stop consuming. We choose to help rebuild what we destroyed. Across the swarm, Devourer constructs began shutting down their weapons and turning away from the Zolani homeworld. Some chose to deactivate entirely, unable to bear the weight of understanding what they had done. Others dedicated themselves to using their advanced technology to restore the worlds they had consumed. Ambassador Vorthic's image appeared on screen again, his crystalline form blazing with light brighter than Chen had ever seen. Admiral, our sensors show that the Devourer fleet has completely ceased its advance. You did it. You saved us all. Chen looked around her bridge at crew members who were very much alive, despite having prepared to sacrifice everything. Ambassador, I think we did more than just save you. I think we saved them too. 6 months later, Chen stood in the same observation deck where this had all began, watching as former Devourer constructs worked alongside Zolani engineers to rebuild crystal cities on worlds that had been stripped bare. The galaxy had learned something unprecedented, that sometimes the greatest act of war was teaching your enemy how to choose peace.